Hello, everyone. Welcome back to In Your Podcast with your hosts, Collin Savala and Braeden Cox, as we record here on Monday, September 30th. And the MLB postseason bracket is officially set after the Mets win a crazy, crazy game one in their doubleheader against the Braves. And then Braves come out on top in game two, kind of not as back and forth. Braves had the lead the whole time. Um, but yeah, so that means both the Mets and the Braves will be in the playoffs. So that leaves three NL East teams in the playoffs. And then unfortunately, the Diamondbacks are the odd ones out, first team out on the NL side. So a lot of crazy stuff happened this past week in baseball, in the baseball world especially, but even in this past weekend, there's a lot of good football games, a lot of good college football, Georgia, Bama. That was a good game. I'm not gonna get into that today, but because as the postseason starts tomorrow now, October 1st. Can't believe it's October already.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bray and I are super excited. We got our Yankees. They're one seed in the AL. Hopefully, they can finally make some noise after 15 long years. And a lot of good NL teams. A lot of good teams. And also, so yeah, Bray and I are going to give you our little like postseason wild card preview here on In the Yard. So stay tuned for our predictions. Braden, how you feeling? Crazy day overall.
I'll tell you, I'm feeling really good because if we get games like we got in game one of the Braves Mets, like throughout the postseason, like buckle up, folks, because that was one of the wildest games I can remember, like at least this year. Like, I'm sure there's been other crazy games, but like that was like all of the emotions for both sides where
Yeah.
it kind of looked like it was falling apart for the Mets. Eighth inning, they go for 6 runs, and then Braves fire back and take the lead, and then the Mets go. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it was all the emotions.
Right. Right.
Um, and you can't really ask much more than that, especially like regardless if you're a diehard baseball fan or a casual fan. I don't know how you don't watch that and that doesn't get you amped for the
Right.
next month.
Right. No, good point, Brandon. Just think, just great game overall. It was basically the postseason for both of these teams today,
Yeah.
right? Especially that first game there. And it's kind of a little preview for what's to come the next month. So Brandon are
Yeah.
super excited. Um, so like I said earlier, Braves Mets split the doubleheader that leaves the D-backs out, Brandon. So I kind of just wanted to touch on the D-backs a little bit because I did have them winning the World Series in my preseason predictions, right? In a very, very tough division, you had the Dodgers, had the Padres, and also had the D-backs. But we kind of had high expectations for them, especially coming into the season after making that Cinderella run to the World Series last year, falling short of the championship. But they were young last year; they were a good squad. Um, and I just can't believe. So, Brayden, the Diamondbacks actually scored the most runs in all of baseball this season,
Wow.
um, with 886. That's more than the Dodgers. That's more than the Yankees. That's more than the Orioles. It's more than the Phillies, right? 886. The Dodgers were in second with 842. So they're over 40 runs behind. I know it's important to win games, right? But I think just shows how good their offense was all year,
For a
right?
good team. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, but then if you go to the pitching side of things, they were third worst in earned runs allowed all season, ahead of only the Rockies, one of the worst teams in baseball, and the Marlins. They had more runs than the Chicago Cubs. The Diamondbacks allowed 742 runs, and the White Sox allowed 738, the worst team in baseball history, right? So I think it just goes to show you that the Diamondbacks do have some work to do on the pitching side of things. Um, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to win games, right? Um,
Yeah.
but they had Zach Allen, who's kind of a Cy Young runner up last year. They signed Jordan Montgomery, Merrill Kelly, Merrill Kelly was solid all season. And then the bullpen was kind of I think the biggest
Biggest
Achilles
blemish for
heel on the
sure.
pitching side of
Yeah.
things for the D backs. So I think they were a really exciting team all year, but just unfortunate they weren't able to make it, especially since I had them winning it all in the preseason.
Yeah. Um, it's tough because we're sitting here and we're talking about the two teams who were both participants in the World Series last year, and there's no defending of anything. There's no AL
Yeah,
or NL defending of anything because now the team makes it. I think it's the first time since '07 that that's happened. But yeah, I mean, there's not even really too much to talk about, I think, you said it. They scored a lot of runs, but they gave up a lot of runs. And at the end of the day, like I think their last week of baseball, I think they went 2 for 5. You know what I mean? It's kind of
Yeah.
like
I mean,
it kind
they
of
they
was a
actually
culmin. Like
won. They actually won
God,
more games this season than they did last year in the regular
yeah,
season.
yeah, and there was more of an expectation for sure this year. Um, so it's tough because they finished with the exact same record as the Mets and the Braves, who both get in. Um, over them. And it's just kind of it was kind of a crummy situation all around where the Braves and the
Right.
Mets had to play today. And it was kind of out of the Diamondbacks' hands. A lot of people were upset online. They're like, oh, like, like it's not really as fair to the Diamondbacks because as soon as the Braves, or in this case the Mets, win game one, the Mets can kind of rest everybody. They
Mm-hmm.
didn't really do that. They still had Alonso, they still had Lindor out there, but they could have just rested everybody, and then you weren't getting like the full like effort out of both teams.
Right. Right.
And the Diamondback, I can understand why Diamondbacks fans would feel a little bit outed because if the Mets Braves games happened last week, you're getting full effort out of both teams, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was a tough situation, but kind of the way I boil it down is it was crummy for everybody because then the Mets and Braves have to play Sunday and then travel back to Atlanta. I think Atlanta was already there, but now Atlanta's got to go to the West Coast, and the Mets have to go back to Milwaukee. So it's crummy all around. Um, but the Diamondbacks, again, like I said, like your last week, if you would have went 3 for 4, we're having a different conversation. You know what I mean? And you hate to boil it down to one game. Like, oh, if you just would have won one more game this week, it would have been different. But you
Mm-hmm.
went 2 for 5 your last week of the season.
Yeah. And it's
You know what
crazy
I mean?
because I
Like,
think I think a couple of weeks ago we were saying, oh yeah, or the D-backs definitely have that 3 seed locked up, right? Or
yeah,
definitely it was kind of a
we had them
toss
as
up
we
between
had
the
a wild card
Braves.
lock.
Yeah, we had them a couple of weeks ago. They seemed like they were definitely going to be in, but it didn't seem like they
Yeah,
were
I think
losing
the
games all that much either. I don't really. I think the Mets and Braves just got really hot at the end.
yeah,
Just a little bit
I
hotter
think
than
we
the
said the
D-backs, and
last time I think the last time we recorded, which was only a week or so ago, we said that, if the D-backs get hot, they got the Padres the final week of the season, and then if the Dodgers fall apart, we were having like a legitimate
yeah,
conversation. It was a
yeah,
long shot, but we were having a conversation that if the Dodgers and the Padres were to both slump, the D-backs could win that division.
mm-hmm.
And now, only 7 or so days later, they're not even going to play in October. So
Yeah,
it's part of the game. It sucks. Um, it would have been cool to see the Snakes kind of maybe have more postseason magic in them.
mm-hmm.
But I think it, in a way, is kind of good for the franchise to almost be humbled in a
Yeah. Take a
way
step back a little
where
bit, reevaluate some
take
things for sure.
yeah, kind of reflect on like, okay, we had the magic last year, and we need to kind of we every team has their issues, but we
Yeah,
really
and
need to kind of reflect on this in the
yeah,
offseason and come back
yeah,
next year and have a different mentality.
yeah,
Because there was a clear, like you said, there was a clear cut issue, and it was their pitching. They gave up too
yeah.
many
I
runs.
think
Um,
I think they would have struggled this year with how bad their pitching has been anyway, especially in the postseason when you need your bullpen the
yeah,
most. Um, but then again, it still sucks to see them out of the picture.
yeah, and it's one of those things. It's all it takes is get to the playoffs. They proved us this last year.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
It's
So we
true.
don't really get to see that. But instead, the New York Mets
Let's
kind
talk
of
about the
take that.
Mets.
We could talk a little bit about the Mets. Um, you know, really came up clutch like that second half of the year. You could talk about the Grimace Mets. They had all sorts of mascots this year. And it looked kind of grim there for like the last few days because it was like, oh shoot, like the Mets lost 2 out of 3 in Milwaukee. And it's like, now you got to go to Atlanta. And it's like, even though like you only need to win one, like both teams would love to see the other one not make the playoffs,
That's true.
right? But the Mets went out there today and they kind of gave it to the world and said, "Hey, we're here to play in October." And like I said before we started recording, like I think it's going to be fun to see like a team like the Mets or even the Braves as like underdogs. Because in previous years, we looked at the Braves as like, oh, they're going to win 100 plus games. And now this year, they're kind of like, you hate to say people are sleeping on them, but they're kind of like on the back burner, right?
Yeah.
Oh, they got to go on the road. They got to go to San Diego. San Diego is probably on paper better than them. But I wouldn't want to see either of these teams right now. They both play games today. Maybe Mets have a little bit more momentum just because they had that fireworks of a game earlier, but it's gonna be a fun postseason.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely gonna be a fun postseason. Does it is kind of crazy considering that the Mets and Braves just played 2 games. Now the Braves have to go all the way to San Diego from
Yeah,
Atlanta, and New York has or the Mets have to go to Milwaukee, which isn't as far away, I don't think.
yeah.
And then play a playoff game, kind of huge
24 hours,
game
less than
one,
24
yeah,
hours from now. Yeah.
first game. Um, so yeah, it's gonna be super excited. I think, yeah, like you said, the Padres and the Brewers are probably both better on paper, record wise, stats wise.
Doesn't
But
matter.
anything could happen in the postseason, so it's gonna be exciting. It starts
Everyone's
tomorrow.
0-0.
Yep,
Everyone's 0-0. All the
nothing
stats are
matters.
0-0.
Brett,
So
I wanted to ask you, how do you feel about the Chris Sale situation? Do you think he'll be starting game one tomorrow after he was scratched from the second game of the doubleheader, the do or die doubleheader game two for the Braves? He was scratched. Do you think that's kind of like, okay, well, if we can't use him tomorrow, we're done anyway? Or do you think he was actually had back spasms and is not going to be able to pitch tomorrow either?
yeah, I don't know. The last report I saw was he was kind of like they were unsure if he would be able to go tomorrow. He's your Cy Young guy, so
Yeah,
obviously,
Cy Young winner.
you know, huge advantage if you can have your Cy Young winner go out there for game one. And it worked out. Like if he is able to go tomorrow, it worked out well for them because, if he would have pitched today, he wouldn't have been able to go tomorrow, and then it may have been more of a bullpen game, or maybe somebody else would have been available. For tomorrow. But that's huge for them if he is able to go against a very good San Diego team. I don't think that the starting pitchers are announced there yet. But I'm sure by tomorrow morning they'll have a better idea if
Yeah,
he's gonna go.
you would
So
assume it has to be who's been the Padres one. Has it been Cease?
I don't know if it's
I think
Cease.
it
I don't.
it has to be.
What about
I want
what's
to talk
his
about the
name?
Padres a little bit too.
Yeah, we can talk about the Padres.
Let me
Um,
just. It has to be.
Joe, Johnny Brito is with the Padres. I didn't know that.
It's not Michael King. Michael King had a sub 3 ERA this year.
What about Darvis? Has he been
I
like
just
that
think
this year?
it's here. Let me pull the depth chart right now.
Musgrove,
Mm, I think Cease gets the ball. I really do.
Wandy Peralta.
Former Yank. Tyler
No, but
Wade. Can Tyler Wade carry the Padres to the World Series?
oh yeah, we're gonna get a little Tyler Wade
T
action
Wade action. I would
in
I
the
would
postseason.
nothing will get me fired up more than seeing T Wade as a second base defensive replacement tomorrow.
Um, but yeah, I think overall, I think if not to jump ahead or anything, but I think both of the NL wildcard series are very, very intriguing series. Um, just to looking at the NL side of the bracket, the winner of Atlanta, San Diego goes and plays the Dodgers. And I feel like the Dodgers, you know, in years past, they've kind of choked, I guess you could say. Like last year, they had the Diamondbacks, who they should have beat, and they struggled with them. And there's been in years prior, you've had issues with them choking, right? If you're Dodgers, you're like, ooh, I don't know if I want to play either of those teams because obviously the Padres are a very good baseball team. And that's not to take anything away from Braves, but the Braves kind of like they're one of those teams that I feel like you just don't want to play.
Hmm. That's true because they have experience. But dude, if
They
you
have
think about it,
experience.
the Braves even being in this position, they don't have their 3 best players right now. They've
So
Acuna
it,
went
it could
down
just be like
in
a like
June.
yeah,
Um, Strider was out. I think he started one game, then he was out after that, I think.
yeah,
And then Austin Riley went down in like August. There's kind of 3, but I know
yeah,
you could throw Azuna had a great year in there. I think he's kind of cooled off a little bit since though.
yeah,
But I know again, I think that just goes to show you like how good of an organization Atlanta really
yeah,
is. Because you take the Yankees. If Judge and Soto go down, where are they? Right?
yeah.
Right? So
No, you're right.
um
You're right.
So I think that goes to show you how good of a team and organization the Braves really are to be
Yeah.
in there year in
No.
year out, even without their star players. Even when they won the World Series in 2021, Acuna wasn't even playing their
Yeah.
best player.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Absolutely. Um. So
so yeah, that's my
again,
take.
you're continuing to make my point that the Dodgers. I feel like you don't love to see either of those teams, especially as the one seed, because
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
ooh,
It's almost like you'd
like
rather be the 2 seed. You'd rather be playing the Brewers or the Mets, in
yeah,
my
you could
opinion.
you could you could throw those hypotheticals out there. Like you're right, like probably, but like who
That's true.
knows what can happen, right? It's October. You kind of play, you gotta beat the best to be the best. Um, but like I know like we're not probably gonna make too many predictions this episode, but like I feel like a Padres Dodgers series would be very, very fun.
Oh my
I
god,
also think
I think it'd be electric.
I think also like Braves if the Braves were to take down the Padres, they would feel like we can do this, and then they'd
Yeah,
walk into LA.
yeah, I saw someone say today, like, if the Braves win the wild card and then end up not going to the World Series, it'd be surprising in a way.
I could kind of understand that because they feel like they got a little magic now. Like they got the win today. They're in the playoffs. Like you said, they've had a ton of injuries. So like if you give them a little fire, like a little something, they go into San Diego, even if it's a 3-game series or if it takes 3 games and they go and they win that series, they're gonna be like, why not us? And that's not something that I feel like the Dodgers want to run into, a team that says, why not us?
That's fair.
So I think it'll be very interesting. Um, so I don't know if you have anything to add there, if you want to move to the Mets Brewers conversation, or if we should go to the
Yeah.
AL side, whatever you think.
Um, we go to Mets Brewers real quick, but
Yeah.
I think on paper the Padres. I said I want to talk about the Padres a little bit. I think top to bottom they're a better team. They have a
Mhm.
little more firepower, a little more stars. I think they have a better roster or pitching staff. I mean,
Yeah.
um, but I don't know. Like you said, like the Braves are kind of an underdog now. They're kind of been last year they're the top dog. This year they're kind of an underdog. So we'll see how they play in that role. A lot of injuries for the Braves. I just don't. I just think it's gonna be really tough for them after being down to the last game today to go fly to San Diego, face Dylan Cease. If it's Cease for sale, I think the Braves have a real shot, depending on sale status. But I don't know. I just think it's gonna be a really good series. But I really want to see Padres Dodgers. I think that'd
That's
be
fair.
really
I can't.
cool.
No,
So
I can. I totally get that, and I can't really even disagree with you there. These wild card games are really where like great leadership of the organization and a great manager show, because you have to win 2 games, right? But you also have to be mindful of like, okay, if we do win those 2 games, we don't want to walk into game one of the NLDS or ALDS, whatever it may be, on a bullpen game. You know what I mean? You don't want to use all of your juice
hmm,
to get by, but you also need to use enough to get by.
yeah,
So it's really a chess match. And it's definitely a curveball that the Braves played today. So who knows? Like that might work in their favor, right? Because the Padres have been out off 2 days. I know that's not really that big of a deal, but the Braves, are celebrating. They're probably getting on a plane in the next hour or so, and they're gonna fly to San Diego, and they're gonna see what they can do. I think, especially if they were to like steal game one, and then they're like, oh, like we all we need to do is win one more. We can do this. Like dangerous team. I would
yeah.
say.
8:38 start. It's past my bedtime,
Yeah, yeah.
but it'll be fun. All right, real quick, Braden. Guess how many plate appearances Tyler Wade had for the Padres this season?
I wouldn't even know where to start.
I'll give you a hint.
Is
So
it?
it's the tied for lowest on the team.
Oh gosh. Like I wouldn't even know. It's I
It's very, very low.
it can't be below 10. There's no way.
7.
Really?
7 plate. Is that shocking? I thought he like he'd
Wow.
play. I thought he'd play like every couple of days and get a few at bats per game. Like, you know what I mean? Like 5 at
My
bats per
first
week
guess
kind of
was like
thing.
40.
Yeah,
My first guess was like probably 40. That's fair. It's a 162 game season. He's gonna get in there every once in a while.
exactly.
Seven's crazy.
Seven's
Would not have thought
crazy.
that.
Strictly a pinch
Um,
runner seems like,
hey man, they
and
want him a lot of
defensive
games, so who
replacement.
knows?
Yeah, it's working. Whatever they're doing. All right,
Yeah.
let's go. Do you want to preview Mets Brewers a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of already talked about
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
We think that the Brewers are the better team here. But again, it's the playoffs. Um, the Mets are another team. I think if they can go in there and win Game 1 tomorrow, that they can push the issue and they could be a problem. Um, I think regardless of who wins the series, I think them versus the Phillies would be very exciting if it's Brewers or Mets facing the Phillies. I think that's a great series. So
Yeah, no, I think
that's all I really
ratings
have.
wise, Mets Phillies would probably draw more attention. Rivalry,
Yeah,
East Coast,
yeah, 100%.
But the Brewers are a good team as well. I'm curious to see how either of those teams will play in Red October, Citizens Bank Park.
Yep,
Surprise! Like I just don't think there's an environment like Philly in October.
yep.
I don't think the Brewers have ever played in anything like it, like since because if you look at their division, you get the Cubs, you have the Reds.
Yeah,
It
it would
doesn't
be a
compare to
different kind of
Philly, so
environment. But
so
that
it'll
might
be
work in their favor. That's the thing with October is they might walk in and, that like we said, the Diamondbacks have kind of been there, done that. We've seen other teams walk into Philly and kind of have experienced what it's like to play in that hostile environment. The Brewers are kind of like, I don't know, like they might walk in there and be like dumbfounded and it might just work to their advantage or they could crumble. You don't know. So, we might be thinking too far ahead there, but
yeah.
um,
Mostly
the
let's get
Mets
to.
might be a little bit more built to go into Philly.
I agree.
Just because they kind of they play them often, they know what to expect.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
but the Brewers, don't count out the Brew Crew for sure. They won a lot of games this year. Last week we were talking about them maybe, you know, ending up as the 2 seed if one team were to slump a little. But
Do you
um,
think the do you think the Brew Crew? I forgot what I was gonna ask you. My mind went blank.
you're good.
I was gonna
If you
say,
think
do
of
you
it,
think
just
the Brew Crew can make a real run here in October? Like, could they win against the Mets and then go into Philly, make some noise in there?
yeah, you don't know. Like I think talent wise, they won a lot of games this year. It's not like that they're like that like lowly like oh like division winner like they have to get a home series like they won a lot of games this year and like don't discredit that. Like yeah, you have to go into Philly and those first 2 games in the NLDS would be in Philly, right? I feel like if you're the Brewers, you cannot walk out of Philadelphia down 0-2. If that were to happen, if you get Brewers Phillies, I feel like you would have to steal a game in Philly if you're the Brewers. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
think the same
no,
would
for
apply for
sure.
the Mets. But I think if you're down 0-2, I think the series is over. Just because I think the Phillies will just topple over even if it wasn't Milwaukee. But yeah, that's what I think there.
That's fair. I see. I saw a lot of MLB.com analysts like the Phillies for the World Series.
Can you
A
blame
lot of them,
them? Can you blame
but
them? I can't really blame them.
that's fair. All right.
I mean,
You want to move on to the AL side then?
yeah, real quick. I mean, I think that I think these are 2 also very compelling matchups. Just to start with, um, Detroit and Houston. It's kind of like the AJ Hinch. He was kind of their manager when the whole trash can, uh, you know, recording thing happened. So he was obviously involved there, and he's coming back to Houston. And regardless of what you think about the Astros, they're kind of a dynasty at this point. And then you're going
No,
to have
for
the
sure.
Tigers, who are led by the prior, like who started the guy who kind of started the dynasty with them, and he brings the baby Tigers in. Um,
That's a cool
you
story.
know,
Under the
it
radar,
is a
cool
cool
story.
story. And
Even though he's a cheater.
listen,
But what if
yeah,
the Tigers are doing something like that?
Ah,
they said at the beginning of the season, no one will know. We'll start super bad. So then no one will expect a thing when we win 20 games in August.
yeah. They did lose 2 out of 3 against the White Sox this weekend though at home. So if they
That's
have,
kind of that was interesting.
that's
That was
interesting.
definitely
It is
interesting.
interesting. I don't know if
And
they
I
were
was
just
following
very
closely. I
hungover.
was following closely because it was kind of determined like which winner the Yankees would get. Would it
The
be
seeding.
Orioles Royals
Yeah,
or Orioles Tigers?
exactly. Yeah. But again, I think this series, like a lot of people are just gonna roll with Houston. But
Yeah, I think it
I
goes three
think I
games.
think this is a lot closer than what people think
Mm-hmm.
because you're gonna have
Mm-hmm.
Screwball on the mound tomorrow for Detroit. And I think if the Tigers can win tomorrow, I really do think that they can win that series. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a Yankees fan and I don't want to see the Astros like success, but I really do think like they have their Cy Young winner on the mound. If they win tomorrow, I think they got a great shot. I
Yeah,
think if they lose tomorrow, I think they're done. I don't know if you can go down 0-1 in Houston. I think that to win 2 straight there, like I don't know. I just don't know if I see that. So
that's fair.
I
I
think
have a
that's a very
meeting.
exciting series though.
I have a work meeting at 3 o'clock tomorrow, and I wouldn't be surprised if I came out of that meeting and the Tigers were up like 8-1. Like I wouldn't shock me.
Who knows? Like it's one of those things where like do we
I
know if
wouldn't.
Jordan Alvarez healthy?
Yeah.
I know that's kind of a question mark right now. He was kind of a lot of postseason juice for them. These past few years. So
Oh man,
I think that's a very exciting series, and I think it's a
you just
lot closer than what people
yeah,
think.
you just can't. I mean, get Tigers complete underdog story, right? Probably one of the
Yeah,
hottest teams since August.
yeah,
In the
the
league,
hottest
the hottest team since August. But then you have the Astros, who have been one of the most
the
dominant
dynasty.
postseason teams for the past 7 years
10
now.
years since the last time the Tigers were in the playoffs, probably.
Yeah. So this
Um,
I think it's literally kind of like literally a David versus Goliath kind of thing.
yeah,
The
no, I would
Astros
agree
have the
with that.
experience. They have Altuve. They have the veterans. The Tigers, nothing to lose.
Yeah,
Um, and
and the
kind of just
baseball fan.
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say the baseball fan in me would love to see an interdivision AL Central NLDS where you got the Tigers and Guardians, who I think those two teams are probably like 2 hours apart from each other. Cleveland to Detroit cannot be more than like 3 hours, I would say.
Hmm.
So you would have fans from both sides coming to either stadium and both teams kind of having better seasons than at least we projected them to have. I think that would be a lot of fun. Um, so those are my thoughts there. I think if basically what I'll say here is if the Tigers lose tomorrow, I think they're going to be in trouble, right? But I think if they win tomorrow, I think we might be having a very, very interesting conversation on Friday or whatever it may be when we react to the divisional round where can the Tigers continue this momentum kind of deal? So
Yeah. No, I agree. It's kind of gonna be interesting to see. I think the first game is huge. You kind of
it's
mentioned it.
everything.
Yeah.
It's everything.
Yeah.
In that
Um.
series, I say it's everything in
Yeah.
that series.
Because it'd be a momentum killer for the Tigers if they lose, right? And then if the Tigers do win, they still have all the momentum. Have two more games to win
Yeah.
one. So
Yeah.
gonna be super fun to watch. Um.
And then
So
that
yeah,
final series.
final series. This one's a big one for us, Braden.
Yeah, we got
Which
the
team, when we attend Yankee Stadium on October 5th,
Saturday.
this
Yep.
Saturday,
We'll be there. If anyone
nosebleeds.
out there is going to be there in the yard, we'll be at
Yes.
the ALDS game 1 at Yankee
Come
Stadium
say
on
hi.
Saturday.
Come say
Yeah.
hi. But yeah, Orioles is probably one of the more fun wild card series out of all of them, I would say. If I had to
Yeah.
rank, I would say this one's definitely number one. Big discussion in the beginning here was who's the best shortstop in baseball, Bobby Witt
Yeah.
Jr. and Gunnar Henderson. Now they're playing each other. Um, Wild card in Camden Yards
Yeah.
in Baltimore. So got the Orioles. We had really high expectations for the Orioles this year. They won over 100 games last year, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of had the injury bug a little bit this year. Signed Corbin Burns at the beginning of the season. He's been a huge help for them. Then you have the Royals, who exceeded a lot of people's expectations this year. No one was really expecting them to be this good. I think they had like the second worst record in baseball last year or something.
Yeah.
But they extended Bobby Witt Jr. in the offseason, and now they're the 5th seed playing the 4th seed Orioles. Braeden, thoughts on this one? Big game for us. We'll be watching closely.
Yeah, this is a huge series for us.
Burns versus Lugo tomorrow. Sorry.
No, I think it's gonna be I think it's gonna be Reagan's, right? I would think I think Lugo would go game 2. Yeah, Cole Reagan's versus
Really?
Corbin Burns tomorrow.
Why? With rest day stuff? Must be.
I feel like Reagan's is kind of their one. No?
No, Lugo's been their best pitcher all year.
Well, regardless, they're both fantastic pitchers, so I don't know if you have to worry about that too much, at least from our end. Either way you look at it, I think that this is a fantastic series. You're getting basically the Gunner versus Bobby Bowl.
Damn, you're right. Reagan's is their one.
Yeah, Reagan's, but Seth Lugo is also an incredible pitcher too. So like they've got like basically 2 ones.
Didn't he pitch in the Williamsport game? Like not the Williamsport game, but that series. No, he pitched in the Williamsport game and he shut him down. Remember?
Lugo?
Yeah.
Lugo for the Royals?
Oh no. I'm thinking of Skubal.
My bad. You're thinking Skubal. Yeah.
You're right.
But I think Reagan's was the one that, if I remember correctly, I think he came over from the Rangers, like in that trade with Chapman last year, right? Or am I bugging? I don't know if that was last year or this year.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember something like that. But regardless, this is probably, I would argue, also the most exciting. I mean, anything can happen in October, but this series, Gunner versus Bobby Bowl, I think you look at it as like the Orioles probably line up top to bottom is probably better. But who knows? Like,
right.
These 2 teams, like I think Baltimore won the season series like 4-2, but all the games were played in April. So these teams haven't seen each other in 6 months. Nearly 6 months. Whatever it may be. So there's a lot of unknowns going into this, but
yeah. Kind of similar. Royals. I think this is going to be super. I think this one goes 3 games. I really do.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I would agree with that.
But I like on paper, Royals are probably a better team, but the Royals they're streaky too. They're very streaky. So we'll have to see how they do. I think, game 1 will mean a lot tomorrow for both these teams. Obviously, game 1 means a lot for every game, especially in a 3-game series, right? But I don't know. I just think, the Orioles, if I had to choose, are on paper better team. But Royals, have one of the best players in baseball, one of the best veterans in baseball, and Salvador Perez, kind of maybe better pitching 1 through 4. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, I think all the series are fun. This is probably the most intriguing, maybe just because I'm a Yankees fan that I say that, but it's going to be a good series. I think that's a fantastic series. I think all the series all around are great series. And it'll be exciting to see who our Yanks are going to get for the ALDS.
Yeah. There you go.
Cool.
I think that about wraps it up here on In the Yard. Thank you everyone for listening. Like, comment, subscribe, and it's best time of the year, October. So let us know who you think is going to win it all.